All right, we are back with another episode of We the People. Before I get deep into this conversation today, I just want to make a quick announcement. There's a lot of things going on in the world today, and some of the things that are going on impacts everybody. Everything is impacting everybody right now, especially when it deals with politics. So today, we got a very, very special panel today. I have my favorite co-host, and actually he and I tend to alternate. I have Aya.
How you doing?
How you doing, man?
Doing great. Let's keep this going.
Let's keep it going. We also got our second co-host, not necessarily in that order, but our other co-host. We had Michelle on the show today.
Hey there, how are you?
I'm good. She's got that pretty smile, and there's always something about that smile that kind of lights me up. I'm sorry, I didn't talk about your lady like that, but it's just what it is.
See, you broke the secret.
I did.
You know,
I did. I'm sorry.
you know,
I didn't mean to do that.
You know,
I didn't mean to. I'm sorry.
Because the fans are saying I've been trying to flirt with her, so it's like
I need to tell them the truth. But anyway, and we have a very special person on the show. She's very excited to have. We're very excited to have her, and we have Sonia Pleasant.
Thank you.
And
Very excited.
She has a rich radio voice, so she's gonna fit right in perfect.
Thank you.
Everyone here has a nice radio voice. I'm feeling jealous. I need to.
You have a nice radio
I need
voice
to
too.
work on my vocals here. So people, there's a lot of stuff going on with the stimulus. We know that the House had passed one, 2.5 months ago?
yes, the HEROES Act.
The CARES Act.
No, the HEROES Act.
The HEROES Act, that's right. And the Republicans have tried to come up with something about a week and a half ago, which is called the HEROES Act.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And it flopped in front of their own committees, right?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't go anywhere. That's because they tried to rush it and ran it through and knew there were some deadlines coming up. They felt they'd be pushed through.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That's correct. Well, actually, they didn't even get it to committee. They were still bickering between themselves.
Right.
They got 20 senators who were talking about didn't want to do anything.
That's right.
That's
right.
What kind of craziness is that?
And then McConnell came out, and I think I saw an article where he said that, well, you guys need to know, giving us a civics lesson, you guys need to know that it takes at least 60 senators to pass the bill. But there weren't 60 people that was willing to agree to this thing.
No.
And then they couldn't even decide on what's going to be in it. So it was a problem.
Yeah.
One of the things that was proposed, and I think this was Romney, that came over with a proposal of offering $1,000 as part of the stimulus package. I think that may have gotten a tiny bit of traction, but that didn't get much, did it?
No, not at all. In fact, it didn't even do a blip. The
Right.
thing that came to light was they wanted to reduce the extra unemployment payment
The 200?
from $600 to $200.
Right.
Yes.
So the $1,000 was just a one time, so similar to
Yes.
the 1,200.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Got it.
So when you're going back to the original CARES Act that started it all, they had a component called PUA, which is Pandemic Unemployment Assistance.
Right.
So they knew the COVID was out there and needed to take care of people.
Mm-hmm.
So within that whole bill, they added $600 a week to normal unemployment payments plus extended it for 13 weeks.
Right.
So also in that, they did something that never happened before. They added independent contractors,
Right.
gig workers, people who do Uber, Lyft,
Right.
DoorDash, all that stuff.
Right.
Because the whole idea of unemployment is you work your time,
Right.
and they're giving you back the wages as much as what you lost.
And there's so many industries that were impacted
Yes.
by the coronavirus.
Hospitality.
Hospitality.
Right.
But you
Gonna get
mentioned,
hard.
you did mention the drivers.
Yes.
So
Lyft and Uber.
yeah, Uber and
Lyft.
Lyft.
Mhm.
So I think there was one or two other ones. I think even there's one or two here in Arlington. I think. Smaller ones.
Yes.
But
Via or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go back for a second, because I know back in 2013,
Mhm.
okay, the Republican held Congress at the time. Matter of fact, it was during the Obama administration where they had lost both the House and the Senate.
Uh-huh.
They came up with a proposal, which actually became a bill, that if unemployment drops under a certain point, if it rises to a certain point, I think it's 10% plus, that it automatically triggers an extra 13 weeks of unemployment. Okay.
Okay.
So that changed in 20 because I remember just before that when unemployment. Do you remember what happened in 2008 when Obama first came in office? You know, they were losing about 700,000 jobs a month.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was what triggered that thing because at that time there was a lot of controversy going back and forth in the first 2 years of Obama's administration up to 2010 when they had the midterms. The Democrats had control of the House, the White House, and the Senate.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's when they were pushing this thing. But for some reason, the Republicans decided, and we're not going to get too bipartisan here, but I can't help it. I can't help it. Where they decided that, you know, we don't want people getting unemployment because we feel this for the same reason they're using now. We're afraid if we offer them unemployment for too long, they won't want to go back to work. So that's where I want to start our conversation, if you guys don't mind. I'm wondering, and you guys can help me out. I'm just wondering, what is it that the Republicans want us to do? If we're not working and we need assistance and there are no jobs to take, what do they want us to do?
Well, you know, there was a Yale study that was done. In the study, they basically said that $600 per week did not lead to people working less.
Right.
So
Right.
that particular assertion by the Republicans is false,
Right.
and it's very misleading. In fact, there's a quote from one of the researchers, and basically what he said was, "We find no evidence that more generous benefits disincentivizes work either at the onset or as firms look to return to business." So that's a really good question. What is the issue? Because that does not create any type of situations in which workers are not willing to go back to work.
Right.
People want to work,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, and I mean, I don't know any moms that are sitting at home with their kids
Yeah,
for
Yeah.
you know, for the number of weeks that they've been sitting at home with their kids.
Right.
I mean, they love their children,
Right.
but you know, we all
After a
know
while, yeah.
cabin fever is real.
Yeah.
Cabin fever
Yeah.
is real.
They say the
Yeah.
suicide rate is going up some too during this coronavirus.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Suicide rate.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
You want to say something?
Drug addiction. No, it's just that the Republicans are painting this unemployment as a gift.
Right.
You know, like some, you know, no, it's taxpayer
It's
money.
an entitlement.
It's our money.
It isn't. It's our money. You're right.
Yeah, it's not an entitlement. Well, we are entitled to it.
Right.
But in the frame of it, you're telling people that, you know, we're giving you this money because you know, we feel that you needed this dire time, but we feel that if you keep giving this money, you're not going to move out your seat. You know, that whole lazy mentality.
Yeah.
And the, you know, like again, the purpose of unemployment is to,
It's a safety net.
It's
It's
a
like
safety
welfare.
net, yeah.
It's like some other things.
yeah,
Right.
you work that 40-hour
Right.
week. You in your paycheck it
Right.
says UI. You
Right.
pay it. The company pays it
Right.
for the fact that something could happen where you might be furloughed.
Right.
Now, just add addition to this, I'm just going back to this CARES Act.
Mhm.
The CARES Act, the reason you were able to be on unemployment was several reasons. One, if you had the COVID.
Mhm.
Another one is if your family member had the COVID.
Right. You don't want to spread it.
You don't want to spread it.
Right.
Right.
So, and another thing was, I can't recall, but if you're in a situation where there's still a pandemic out there,
Mhm.
you know, you're gonna get sick, and you need this unemployment to make you whole.
Right.
You know, this is
So you're saying that in the CARES Act there was a stipulation in it saying that if you got it, you can get unemployment.
correct.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Wow.
In the pandemic unemployment assistance, right in the
Okay.
CARES Act,
Duh.
right in the CARES Act.
Right.
You know, it was like, you know, and they also added if you are already on unemployment,
Right.
they would give you extra 13 weeks because in most states it's between 12 and 26 weeks you
Right.
can be on unemployment.
Right.
You know, so they knew from when they put that first bill out, there's no way you can be out there getting sick, going to the warehouses, being frontline workers.
Right.
You know, with no real protection.
Right.
So
So tell me, guys, what you think about this. You guys are aware that McConnell and Company, that's what I'm calling the Senate, McConnell and Company decided to take a 3-day vacation.
Right.
I think beginning yesterday.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sorry, Friday.
Friday.
Uh-huh.
Friday. And this thing is still not passed. And they're taking another one for a month, I think on the 7th, which is next week.
Yeah, and it's,
Yeah, it's into September before they can.
actually
Correct.
just before the election, the fall recess.
And from what I heard from Nancy, she's pushing her and Schumer to say that they don't go anywhere. They're trying to do
Right.
something to make it. But how do you think this is going to impact, and it's really kind of hard to predict right now, still early, how do you think this is going to impact the election? Because shortly after they come back, early voting starts.
Yeah.
So how do you think it's going to impact them? And I know McConnell has already said to some of those other senators that are running to start distancing yourself from Trump.
I kind of think it's going to depend on who does the best job of finger pointing. Because
Mhm.
right now, both are pointing at each other.
Right.
You know, the Republicans right now are saying, well, you know, we're trying to do an extension, we're trying to help you out. The Democrats are saying, there's no way that we could execute this extension.
Right.
You waited too long. They should have figured this out a long time ago. So, you know, I kind of think we're polarized now. I think people are still going to be polarized. It
Yeah.
really just comes down to who's better at pointing
Yeah.
fingers, but I
Yeah.
don't think anybody's going to change their mind about it.
And while this is going on, you know, people are getting kicked out of their houses and are
Right.
being evicted,
Mhm.
Right.
like we were talking about last week.
Right.
And it boils down to it is who's going to hurt more. Like, is it the virus is coming in the rural areas?
Right.
So who's going to be hurt more? Is who's the finger's going to be pointed on? Like, you need to fix this.
I think honestly, more than 70% of the population has been impacted by all of this.
Absolutely.
And that's a travesty within itself. So I'm gonna go way ahead and limb on this one. What do you think is going to happen to the Republican Party? Or is it, well, it is up to us, because if we vote certain people out, you know what I mean, or vote other people in, you know what I mean, of course those other people. But there's like an old guard with the Republican Party right now. You know, people like McConnell and whoever follows his. But we know that right now Trump is the leader of the party and things he does and says. But we also see signs that his party is starting to slowly and quietly defect from him without saying, I'm leaving you. But they're starting to go in opposition to him, right? Matter of fact, everything is dealing with the Republican Party is going against Trump in a lot of ways, especially with Fox News.
Mhm.
They're even starting to change their messaging and stuff like that. So, what's the remedy to all of this? Or is there a remedy? Or is this something we go through every 10, 12 years, you know, with the parties? Because I read an article a couple of weeks ago where it said that, well, I think it was Obama who said this. He said that every time the Republicans come in, when the Democrats come back, they have to clean up the Republicans' mess.
Yep,
He had to do
It's
the
true.
same thing when he took over office.
and got no credit for it.
Right.
Well, he got credit. He just didn't get credit from them.
Right.
They
Yeah.
tried to just make it seem like, you know, you ain't did shit. So, and that was their argument. But go ahead, you want to say something?
No, I was just gonna say the Republicans are using their talking points, believing that they're gonna be in the minority, saying
Right.
we need to protect this deficit, which they
Right.
created.
The deficit they created.
Yes.
So it almost sounds like, it's probably not a parallel, but it makes me think that it almost sounds like what Great Britain did in India when Gandhi was running. Because you had, back then, kind of off topic a little bit, but you had the Hindus and the Muslims on the same land.
Mhm.
And then when Great Britain showed up, they went to the Muslims and said, you know, the people really don't like you, but we can help you. And then went to the others and said the same thing. So all of a sudden now these two people who always lived together for generations, they had the issue, but they worked them out, right? They didn't even have wars. You know, there was wars between the Muslims and the Hindu, but they disagreed on certain things. But then all of a sudden they had the issue about this separate land for each one, and that's when the parties started, then they started really fighting each other. But the Republicans kind of doing the same thing here. They're dividers, and Trump, who was elected, is the ultimate divider.
But your
We divided
question,
them.
I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Your question about, you know, what do we do now? The numbers report that came out this week, you
Mhm.
know, the GDP
Right.
is at a negative 33%.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
do you not think that the Republicans are probably going to go ahead and pass some type of incentive, some type of bill very quickly because of that report?
My only concern is the process. I mean, how long is it going to take? I mean,
Right.
they haven't even put this thing on the ground to discuss it. They can't even debate it right now because I don't know, unless you got some other messaging on that one. That's what I'm aware of. I know that's something I heard Nancy talk about that as well. You guys can't even debate the issues because you don't know what you want to talk about.
Exactly. Well, as far as the Republicans, giving Mitch McConnell's history of all he does is say no
Right.
Right.
and does not govern, they're gonna cave in. They're gonna cave in because they know
They have to.
the writing's on the wall.
Right.
They have to.
You know, they only have what, less than 2 months, and you know, they still, when they go to this recess, they gotta go back to their hometown,
Yeah.
which they're gonna probably be picketed.
Right.
Right.
You know, so I think this is a different cycle.
Yeah.
But as far as, you know, the Republicans in their echo chambers,
Mhm.
you know, they got their own version of Twitter called Parler and all that.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Wow.
you know, they can put their racism stuff over there and stuff like that. But so their leaders will have to try to rein them in, you know. But you know, Pandora's box is out.
Right.
Right.
So I would say that the ones who, before Trump got in, who didn't want him in the first place,
Right.
they're gonna come back.
You mean like the Mitt Romneys and?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Mitt Romney's and who else is the sensible Republican?
It was a woman, I think. I can't remember her name.
Oh, she's gonna get voted out. Susan Collins.
Susan Collins. Yeah.
She- no.
Maine?
She's Maine.
She's Maine. Okay.
Yeah.
And Alaska, what's her name?
Murkowski.
Murkowski.
No, she's gonna survive because she's not up for vote anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last time McConnell tried to get her out, she ended up being on an independent ticket because she lost to a Tea Party person.
And it had to be
Wow.
written in, and people still figured out how
Yeah.
to spell her name. Right?
Yeah, I actually voted for McCuskey back
Did
then. Yeah. Yeah, when I used to live in Alaska.
Oh, I was gonna say, how'd you do that? Okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, it's crazy.
So, did you guys see the article? It was a pretty intense article about it was about the characteristic of McConnell as to why he had so many bills sitting on his table
Yeah.
No.
that he didn't push through.
Mm-mm.
He has been in the Senate for about 30 years now, right?
Yes.
And he's been a leader since Obama has been president, right? I think in 2010. He won that midterm.
Yeah, after the Republicans took over, he
Right.
took over for Harry
As the
Reid.
leader.
Right, exactly. So, all of this time, he has no ability to negotiate. He doesn't have to now. You know Nancy. Nancy wants to get something done. She goes to her caucus. They sit down. They discuss it. What should not be in the bill. And then before she does anything, she gets a vote
Yeah.
from her people in that room before she takes it to the floor.
Yeah.
She won't take it to the floor unless she knows she has a consensus.
Right.
McConnell has no ability to do that. He has none. So don't you guys feel that maybe that should be a qualification? And how do you screen for that? You know what I mean? Can a person negotiate? Because look at the bottleneck that's been happening since 2010, since he's been in office.
Well, do you think he's still going to be the leader after this election? then?
No, absolutely.
I'm hoping he won't be a senator
Yeah.
after this election.
I don't either.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking he might drop
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the minority leader, but I don't see him being.
No, I think he's gonna lose.
Because
Yeah.
Okay.
But that
Well-
said, how do they even decide who the Senate majority leader is?
they have to vote
They
on
have
it.
to vote.
They have to
So
vote
they
on it.
chose him.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, that's another flaw that they have. That's another reason why that party's in trouble. If they can't pick a suitable leader, because there had to have been someone else in there.
Well-
And what about what's his name from South Carolina?
Tim Scott?
Yeah.
No, he's a junior senator. Well,
Sorry,
he,
not Tim
he-
Oh, he's not ready yet. I
no.
thought you got to be in the Senate for a certain amount of time. to be
Well,
considered.
you know, it's basically it's still a vote, up for vote,
Right.
because over on the last cycle, when they weren't sure Nancy was doing, she went up with the congressman from Ohio, Tim.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Tim Ryan, who tried to run for president.
Right.
He joked himself out.
Yeah.
But the only person probably who's going to fight McConnell for leadership,
Right.
I would say, would be Romney.
Yeah, but he's kind of been ousted.
Well, only
You
because
know.
of Trump.
Right, because of Trump.
And
right.
McConnell's telling people to fall in line, but he's
Right.
already on the,
Yeah.
he can be himself now, and now
Right.
he can come up to the forefront saying, look at our party is now in tatters. This is the direction we went. Now we can go my
Well,
way.
he needs to really push that message because, I don't know how many people right now on the Republican side that are his allies. There may be a couple,
Yeah.
but I don't think there's enough, especially with Trump still in office. I just don't see it because then you got this voice that's saying to everybody, this guy's an idiot. That
Mhm.
one voice is Trump. And
Yeah.
if Trump is going against, everything that Romney does, then it's going to be a hard chance of him even getting any type of traction or anything he's trying to push. There was something he was trying, like this $1,000 bill.
Yeah.
This 1,000 thing for the stimulus. I don't think that's going to have any legs right now because now Trump is saying more money. He's saying he wants the American people to get a lot more money than the Democrats have offered.
Yeah.
Right. I get it. I think he was even for the proposal that Harris had proposed about $2,000 every month for the next several months.
Yeah, because it falls in line to universal basic income (UBI).
Right.
Now,
Bring it up, Evan.
Yeah, remember when Andrew Yang came in with the
Yep.
gang,
Yes.
and, you know, because that was his own name to UBI. So the concept of UBI is basically every month you get a set amount, regardless, and you can do whatever you want with it.
Right.
So, for example, in Stockton, California, there was this 26-year-old black mayor who introduced $500 to 100 people for 18 months.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was wildly successful. You know, and just to remember, think about how, you know, just getting $500, regardless of where you are in life, how empowering that is. You know,
For life.
For life. You know, and I would feel that, you know, you can clean your debt. You could, you know, if you need lessons, you go ahead and do it. If you want to actually be generous to somebody, you can be.
You can borrow from that.
You could start
You
a
can take
business.
an advanced loan. You know you got at least $1,000 coming.
Exactly.
So if I want to purchase a house,
Right.
you know what I mean? I'm guaranteed $1,000 long I live.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And if I have family, if he's living with me, then they also bring $1,000. So say you got a household of 4 people, if everyone is over at least 26, I think,
Yeah.
is the minimum. That's $4,000 coming to your household on top of whatever income they're bringing in from work.
Yeah.
That is a hell of a lot of
It's
money.
life changing.
It is life changing.
It's life changing, and I don't knock anybody for not taking it. And I feel that is the way our country's going to go to.
You think it's possible?
I do.
Not
I
under
do.
Not under this senator.
No.
No.
And where does the money come from? I mean, that will be the number one factor. That will be the very thing that makes people say, you know, we can't do this. And
Yeah,
it's
tax
this.
money or something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this income came from partial taxing, but mostly private donation.
Oh, okay, that was right.
Yes, at least the one in California. They're setting up. Well, they're trying to set up one in New Jersey right now.
Okay.
They're doing.
But Yang was talking about going to the IT industry, right?
Yes.
Well, if we
So-
do what Elizabeth Warren said to do,
Right.
if we tax the wealthy, you know, the top 1%,
Well,
Yeah.
then it would fund that.
Right.
Yeah. No, none of this job creators nonsense.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
No,
Right.
it doesn't. This trickle down. See,
Reagan.
yeah, and
Trickle down economics.
you know, it's basically pissing on people. That's basically, you know.
You know, I was actually in college, just coming out of high school
Uh-huh.
when he was shot in 1980. But he was his whole plan, economic plan, and he
Mhm.
talked about this trickle down.
Yeah.
Down. We know it didn't work because the black folks were still suffering.
Right.
What he did was he sold it. And if you go into the black neighborhoods, I was living in Washington D.C. at the time. With all the black people across the country, we were suffering. Unemployment was high amongst black people. There were no jobs for us, you know. And he's still pushing this thing, and then they're like sitting up on it because he talked about the city up on the hill. That
Mhm.
was his thing. You know, he spoke well, but I think that because of the economic climate at the time, and that's when they were really trying to say that black people are hurting themselves, but not taking up on the opportunities. All they want to do is be on welfare, keep having babies. Remember all the talk back then?
Yeah.
They just want to have babies and keep getting more welfare.
Welfare
so they put
moms.
a cap on that.
Right.
Welfare moms. So I'm just not sure. And I can't remember where I was trying to go with this, but I'm just not sure that I even understand why this current Republican Party, right? And some of these people probably were still in office back then during the Reagan administration, right? Well, not too many, a few of them, right? Why they still feel that? Actually, I think McConnell. was, right?
McConnell was.
Yeah.
He'd have been a
Yeah.
newbie. Yeah.
So why do they still feel, and why is it the people who are voting for him, especially in Kentucky, why do they feel that he's doing such a great job? Is it because they didn't feel that there was a good alternative?
Well, there's. Far as I
He
remember,
went uncontested for a
he's
while.
been uncontested, yeah. And besides, no one knows about voting. The voting turnout in Kentucky is one of the lowest in the country.
Well, you know, Texas is the lowest
Well, Texas is the
for a big
lowest.
state.
Yes, yeah, but it ties into, you know, turnout also ties into education.
Right.
Education and levels in Kentucky is low.
I was gonna say, and aren't they ranked like 45th or 46th or 47th
Yes.
Wow.
in the
Yeah.
state
Wow.
in terms of education?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it goes back to people not really thinking it matters to them.
So why was it different, right, because they're talking about it, why was it different in places like Illinois, where, you know, and then, Michigan, where we know that, especially around Detroit and Saginaw and Flint,
Mhm.
where education is low as well.
Yeah.
Very low. And
Mhm.
even in Louisiana, where the education is very, very low. So why is it that the voting is not as low in those states? We talk about education, right?
Yeah, education.
So,
Universally, the other southern states, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Kentucky, the state is universally low education. Michigan is not the case.
okay,
You know, I mean, they have affluent neighbors in Dearborn and everything else.
right,
You know, so that little pocket of districts,
right.
you know, they don't have enough turnout that way.
Mm-hmm.
But the other state that's more affluent, they come out in droves.
I see.
The automotive industry and everything else on
Right.
that side. So it's a smaller population in the northern states
Right,
that don't show up.
right.
It's including Wisconsin as well. Wisconsin is one of the highest numbers
Right.
that come out.
Yeah.
We have to remember too that unions
Yeah.
That's it.
have been really, really big in the
Right.
north,
Absolutely.
and they have huge voting blocks,
That's right.
and
Mhm.
they push voting.
Ah,
That's true.
That's
That's
right.
true.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So these industrial states,
Absolutely.
you know,
Mhm.
like states like Pennsylvania,
Right.
Mhm.
New York.
Right.
Well, they also have better public transportation, so it's easier to get back and forth to,
Yeah.
your polling stations. Whereas, in Kentucky,
Mhm.
if you don't have a car, it's not like you can just catch the bus and,
What
or
about West
something.
Virginia? I mean, a place like West Virginia, I can't see that place having a lot of public transportation, but theirs, probably for the same reasons, for their
Right.
coal industry.
Coal industry,
Coal
yeah.
industry.
Yeah,
Right.
that's interesting. So let's take a little quick history lesson. I want you guys to help me out with this one. Because our engineer Patricia right there, we were having a conversation, we were trying to figure out at what point did the Republican Party switch from the party of Lincoln to the party it is today?
Tea Party.
LBJ.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go
Oh,
ahead. Tea Party. I think it was before the Tea Party.
Oh,
I think it
yeah,
was,
go ahead.
I think it was with LBJ and the civil rights.
Okay,
Yeah, because that was,
interesting.
he kind of stole the thunder as a
Right.
Democrat. He kind of stole the thunder from the Republicans because Republicans, I believe, were planning on instituting more civil rights, and LBJ saw the opportunity to get the black vote, and he knew if I get this done now, then I'm set. So that's what he did,
I think
and that
she's
was
very
when
right.
the
Yeah.
Dixiecrats, which
Right.
were the Democrats, switched over to being Republican, and Republicans moved away because they were kind of horrified with
And then when he came out with these big landmark bills,
Mhm.
right.
that changed everything. It's like, hold it, he's a Southerner and he's going against us.
Yeah, and
So-
that's something that kind of hits me a funny
It's
way when
interesting.
people say, "Well, you should love Republicans."
Right.
Lincoln freed the slaves. Well, okay, fine, Lincoln's
But the
freed,
party's
but
changed.
the
Right,
party has
changed.
It's
changed.
the same party.
And by the way, Lincoln didn't see black folks as equal either.
Right.
He specifically did not. So he didn't want to see me
But
as a
he
slave,
knew
but
that
he
the
didn't see me
country
as
was
an equal.
divided,
Yeah. And
you
that
know,
was the way to
that was
get
the
them
way to
together.
get them together. I
Yeah.
don't think he was for slavery.
No.
I think he
Yeah.
just felt that I'm not going to fight it
Right.
at the beginning. But he also campaigned on freeing the slaves, because that's why the Republicans definitely, well, the Democrats, I'm sorry, in the South did not want him to be elected.
Hmm.
So they kind of fought it, but he ended up winning anyway.
Well, and he did it to weaken
Right,
the South.
right.
Hmm.
That was the key, reason for doing so.
Yep.
And I guess that whole economics in the South is based around slavery.
Absolutely.
The agriculture and farming and everything else, where the North had manufacturers,
Right.
So they became, like up in Massachusetts, it's like Great Britain became one of the great emancipators.
Yeah.
And we're gonna touch on something that I know you and I both are passionate about. But going back to the original question, I think it started slightly before that.
Hmm.
I think it's, maybe a decade before with McCarthy. Because McCarthy was pushing this communist thing, and I think that's where the talk started changing, started brewing up. But I do think it really did change. I think you're spot on with that one. That it was, because I remember when Eisenhower, now I'm not that old, but I'm saying it, when Eisenhower was president, he was kind of like a bouncer between the Democrats and Republicans, because he was able to work with both. I guess being a general, Him coming in office, he didn't have political experience. We had some, but not a lot. But he did 2 terms. And he set this thing to where the economy was going in some issues, but his whole thought was that this country, he saw what happened in Germany. So he decided, well, we got to do something to help stimulate the economy. And what he did was, went to Congress and said, we need millions and millions of dollars for the roads and infrastructure. Because he wanted to be able to move around. There's ever war in the United States. We should be able to move around. If not, it's to our detriment. So, that's pretty good. So, something you and I are passionate about.
Okay.
Which is, and let me just try to word this in the right way.
And before you,
Okay, go ahead.
I wanted, the reason I said Tea Party is because it's gotten more nuttier with more libertarian mindset coming into play. Like, either we have our freedoms, free everybody. Like,
right.
You know, I only responsible for myself and my family.
Okay.
You know, it's come more extreme now.
So, okay, so the Tea Party, okay.
Yeah.
That thing was a joke when it first started. Okay, let's go, okay, so let's stay with there. But let's talk for the people.
Okay.
What is a libertarian? And what is a moderate?
Okay.
I got about 3 more. No,
so, in trying to make it more layman's terms as can be, a libertarian is a conservative, but instead of, you know, thinking about, you know, smaller values, a libertarian is more, like I said earlier, be myself and only my family. You don't get into my household. You know, like I can shoot any guns I want. As far as my gun rights are concerned, I believe in Second Amendment.
Right. Well, isn't that
the smaller government? No.
So it's more personal freedoms than
personal freedoms. Yes.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. Give me some more examples on that one.
As far as libertarian is concerned, my money's my money. I want smaller government.
Okay.
You know, I may have some social things, making like my own body is still, and it's weird. You know, modern day libertarians talking about my body is my own freedom.
So what's different from a libertarian and a liberal, or is there a difference?
Liberal wants government to help.
Okay.
Libertarian doesn't want government at all.
Wow. Okay.
Very, very little.
Okay. So, what was the other one I mentioned? Did I mention conservative?
Moderate.
What is a moderate?
A moderate, I would say, is
Middle of the road.
middle road, reasonable.
Okay.
You know,
able to compromise?
You know, I still want smaller government.
Right.
But I do believe the government should interfere in certain things.
Okay. So what about a progressive?
Wow, progressive.
Now I know what I believe in progressive.
I believe
because
progressive is progress.
I believe, you know, that I'm more of a progressive than anything else. What I just from talking to some people over the years, people who say they're progressive, the way they think, especially with politicians who say they were progressive, they say, well, if there's a need for change, change it. You know, and that's like with anybody in life. If you feel that instead of just not changing it because, okay, it doesn't fit into the norm, no, you find a way to change it as necessary. So those become progressive. But why do you think progressives get a bad name?
They want to change.
I can see libertarians getting a bad name, but why would progressives?
Well, they want to change. They want to change everything. They want everybody to pay for it.
Progressives do?
Well, progressives get pinned. What I believe, progressives, they look at progressives as far left.
It's like Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, they feel like.
Okay.
They feel they misconstrue.
But is he progressive?
Yeah.
Yeah, they see it can be misconstrued as
Socialism,
right?
To progressive, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's tied in. That's why progressives get a bad name,
Right.
Because they feel like everything should be taken care of by the government, which makes it seem like socialism.
Well, he is a socialist. See, I wouldn't call him progressive. I would call him a socialist.
Well,
because I don't believe that part of his campaign. I don't believe that.
Yeah. Well, they're including like a Venn diagram, you know.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So if you're progressive, they public perception is you're a socialist.
Wow.
Perception.
Wow.
It's not the reality.
Okay. For the record, I am not a socialist, but I feel that there's a need for change, so let's work towards making that change. So conservatism. Well, kind of self-explanatory, but we're talking to the people who may not understand what these things.
Are we-
I'm going to hear them all.
I mean, are we talking modern conservatism? Like,
Is there a moderate concern? So they're okay.
so
Different factors
so
there.
Nichelle, we talked about George Will. Like, he's a moderate conservative, isn't he?
Yeah, I would call him a moderate conservative. He's not far right.
Like a Paul Ryan too.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So George Will used to work in the Reagan administration,
Right.
and Paul Ryan was the former Speaker of the House.
Okay.
And so, you know, they do believe smaller government,
Right.
but
But they're not tea parties like
Right.
You know,
Ted Cruz.
Right.
yeah, Ted Cruz,
Right.
you know, Louis Gohmert,
Mm-hmm.
who just got the COVID.
Right.
Right.
know.
Right.
So,
Right.
you know, they're about my freedoms, my body, which
I want to be able to carry a gun.
yes,
But so these people who are saying smaller government, they sure want a lot of enforcement by the government to do things. You know.
Mhm.
So we going back to the thing about abortion rights.
Mm-hmm.
The same people who are against, which are the conservatives, are
Yeah.
against women having the right to get an abortion.
Right.
Get one regulated.
Right.
That requires government
Yeah.
to do that.
Mhm.
Right.
A lot of other issues, you know. I understand you want to have a right to, you know, the Second Amendment right, that you right to carry a firearm. Fine. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
for that. I'm not a person who carry a firearm, but if you feel it's your right to carry it, then go ahead and carry it as long as you're responsible. These other issues, major issues, especially when it comes to economics,
Mhm.
you know, they feel that, you know, the talk back then, back in the 80s and 90s was that, you know, we don't want to give you entitlements. You know, entitlements are a bad thing, they're a horrible thing, right? But you can't have any government that survives without certain type of, this type of democracy.
Yeah.
Well, a democracy state, so.
Well,
yeah.
there's another contradiction for a libertarian mind. As in policing,
Right.
they will want smaller policing. In fact, I saw something about that's old Ahmaud Bundy, the son, you know,
Right.
the one who held up Oregon.
Yeah.
You know, he actually came on Instagram and said, you know, I agree with Black Lives Matter.
Right,
I believe that policing is too big and needs to be changed.
right,
And so that falls in line in the libertarian mind.
right.
So when you look at that in modern conservatism, you know, it's a contradiction that, you know, they need to rectify.
Right.
So
okay. I just don't, okay.
I know it's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And also libertarians believe in property rights, which is another contradiction. Like,
So what does that mean? Property rights?
meaning like my land, if somehow the government has under their rules allowed this land to be mine,
There's
then
no eminent domain.
yeah,
Right. Because like, we know about Washington DC,
yeah,
no one can own the land, it's all federal land.
yeah. But this whole land is stolen, so it's
Right.
like, what are we talking about?
Right.
So at this point now, as a landowner,
Mm-hmm.
the government can come in and confiscate your property for reasons of national security or whatever it is.
For example, the wall.
Right.
The wall down and over the Rio Grande
Right.
border. They're actually, you know, they have legal authority to take your land if it has to do with the border wall,
Right.
construction of that border wall.
So what happened to the Republican Party that came up with ideas like infrastructure? Where are they today? They don't exist. Where is the Republican Party that had great ideas about healthcare and healthcare reform?
Mhm.
Matter of fact, the whole ABA, Affordable Care, ACA, was a Republican idea.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
Romney.
Romney
Romney
used it in
used it.
Massachusetts, right.
Right.
So what happened to that party? Why is it that they're so against these things right now? That's really for the people. Because with that, I'm gonna segue to something I just thought about the McConnell. Okay. Can I answer that one?
I kind of wonder if they turned against it because Obama was for it. Because when he ran on it,
Well, yeah.
he did run on infrastructure
Well, yeah.
and healthcare and all of that.
Well, he did, right. As a matter of fact, that was the first big bill that he tried to push that was gonna create.
Trains.
Right, and it's also gonna create 20,000 extra jobs a month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if this thing's get passed through state by state by state, right?
Well, because of the Obama administration and McConnell and the old groups always trying to say no,
Right.
they painted themselves in the corner. They
Yeah.
they remade themselves just for the sake of saying no matter if it helped them or not. So
So that was another phase of change for the Republican Party
Mhm.
when Obama came on.
yeah,
Well, and
Yeah.
that party got hijacked by the Tea Party.
Yeah, they did.
So if you really look at, like the new conservatives,
Mhm.
those new conservatives are millennials.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
they are changers.
Right.
We want change
So they're
now.
progressive conservative.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
just like you have
Wow.
progressives on the liberal side,
Right.
you've got progressives on the conservative side, and those are those Tea Partiers. And they have hijacked the party.
yeah.
So there's been some talk, we'll talk about this thing about McConnell in a second, but there was some talk about, is it necessary today to even have a two-party system?
No,
No?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say yes, because you always need that checks and balances.
Right.
You're gonna have the yin with the yang.
Right.
You need to.
So why can't we just have multiple parties?
So technically we do, but
Okay. 'Cause of
but there's so much
independence.
money in both the major parties that kind of weak out the Libertarian Party
Right.
and the Green Party.
Okay.
Now there's something the concept that's come up, which is called ranked choice voting, which is starting to gain steam.
So what does that mean?
That means that, in a basic sense, if you have, let's put example the Democratic presidential election.
Okay.
So if you said that you had Warren Biden, Klobuchar,
Mhm.
you were able to say who you want number one. If you want Klobuchar one, Warren, Biden, all the votes get tallied in.
Mhm.
Whoever got the most votes gets to win. But
Right.
if there's not enough votes, then if your person didn't get that vote,
I see what you mean.
then the remaining people who had them second choice
Right.
becomes their first choice,
I see.
which
Wow.
which gives everybody an actual voice.
So that's a popular vote
Yes,
concept.
yes.
So what about the Electoral College? Is it necessary today?
No.
No.
No? Good. You guys want to explain why?
It was created,
To keep timers like this out, but he's in, so now what?
well, it was created, for slavery, so that there would be
Equal
fair
representation.
representation
Mhm.
for slave states.
Interesting. Okay.
And that doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
So,
Michelle? Did you say no?
No.
Oh, you said no. Someone else said no. I know you and I
I
both
was
said
in
no.
agreement. No, we
We
absolutely
were all
Okay.
in agreement. Yeah, we were all in
Okay.
agreement.
we all said no.
See, I thought it was to first keep people like this guy out. Obviously, that didn't work. I thought it had something to do with, because there were some states, going back to when they first came up with the Constitution, where they were trying to decide that certain states wouldn't have certain representation. So the Electoral College, as far as the popular vote, you can still have, based on your population, of course, you can have fewer votes, but you can still gain college votes, electoral college votes.
Mhm.
Like we know, like smaller states, like maybe Rhode Island, which might have three, I forgot there's a few of them that have smaller, but they would still get the same representation under the electoral college. But because it wouldn't be based on how many Congress people you have. So it's based on how many electoral, which I think is the same thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I was wrong. Okay, so going back, let's go rewind the tape a little bit to the stimulus package again. There is one line item that McConnell has said that he's really, really pushing, or he won't. Well, he's kind of softened up on it now. That one line item that he must have in the stimulus.
I think I know what you're talking about.
What do you think of it?
Protect the businesses at all
Yes.
costs.
Yes. Yes. Now, it's obvious where his head is.
Mm-hmm.
And we know when we look back through his time as a leader, that's has been a primary focus.
Yeah.
But
But is it small business or is it big business?
I think it's just business.
Uh-huh.
Because those big businesses going to hit harder in the pocket than the small ones. Like, we're a small business here.
Mm-hmm.
If one of you guys came on the corona, what's to protect this organization?
But if that was the case in the first round, when they doled out the money, small businesses were not represented
Nope.
fairly in
Right.
terms of, the distribution of the funds.
Yeah.
So if that was his intent, then why was that not taken
But
care
small
of?
businesses, because I kind of benefited from it, small businesses were able to get that, was it PPE, Patricia?
No, it was the EDIL.
EDIL.
Yes.
Right.
You mean the
The
$10,000 per employee.
economic.
$1,000 per employee.
Yeah.
Right.
But that was for, hold on, that was only for the grant.
Right.
And not all, originally, when they first brought it out, the larger companies that had 500 employees took majority of the money.
Correct.
And the companies that actually needed the advance, which was a grant,
Right.
did not benefit, so they brought the
Correct.
money back again. And once they brought it back again, I know me personally, I was telling every small business person that I know, hey, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do.
Even if you were an Uber driver.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or,
Yeah, that
or
was
a
the-
contractor.
Yeah, that was for the EDIL.
Yes,
That's right.
yeah, but the PPP, on the
Right.
other hand, they were giving that money away if you could get to the bank.
Yeah,
And
Right.
if you had a relationship with a bank.
With your bank, right.
Yes.
The bank.
Correct.
And that's how a lot of small businesses got cut out of that, because many of them did not have strong relationships with a certain amount of money going into a bank account. So it was a hit and miss, because.
So there were some benefits to
Yeah.
smaller businesses. Probably wasn't that insurance,
Right.
but there were some benefits.
yeah. But going back to the whole unemployment thing, you know, the PPP, the people who have PPP, they didn't use it for, you know, rehiring their people.
Mm-mm.
No.
No.
You know, they probably did it for their R&D and whatever.
Well, yeah,
You know.
Yeah.
and you know, and nobody was there to monitor that.
Right.
You know, nobody's gonna tell them, well, this is what you need to do. We need to see your proof that you did this. Show me a pay stub. You know, nobody was doing that. So there were certain things for everybody in the CARES Act, right? So do you guys know when the actual CARES Act was actually drafted?
No, I just know when it was.
The
passed.
first one or the second one?
The first one.
I don't
It was
remember.
actually drafted, there's something to think about. It was actually drafted in October 2019.
Wow.
And it makes you wonder why it was drafted.
Mhm.
It was a small committee of Republican senators that drafted the bill. Like they knew something, right?
Yeah.
So here, that's why it was so easy to get together and debate it, because all they did is look at it and add a couple lines and take the lines out, or, you know. But it went so fast because it was already there.
Interesting.
It's in
Yeah.
place.
Right.
So, did they know about? Could they have known about COVID in October?
Maybe there's a COVID-18. I don't know. You know, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, it makes you wonder though.
Yes, it
How
does.
is it that they had a foresight?
What
Yeah.
were they anticipating?
What were they
Right.
anticipating? Right?
Right.
It came up so fast.
Mhm.
So fast. And
They executed it really quickly.
sure did. It took
Yeah.
them 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's like a record. And then
Mhm.
everybody's in agreement with it. I mean, everybody, I think there may be 3 people that wasn't.
Yeah.
And even those 3 people weren't against it, they just felt that maybe it's not the right time.
And
So
that was
if
those were
that's-
like that was a Tea Party people too, by the way.
Right.
But
Really?
if that's the case, why can't they just redo what they just did?
Because this one has different stipulations to it though. I mean, reason because the circumstances have changed. Some people feel that the American people have gotten too spoiled, they've gotten too much from this, and it's causing us to be lazy. You know something?
Which
And that
which
house
is-
is based
see,
on
right.
minimum wage. So
Right,
who
right.
wants to stay home for minimum wage if you
I
have
mean,
the
I'll
opportunity to
admit
get
there
out
probably
and
are
make
some.
money?
There are some, but not enough to tip the scales.
Yeah.
You know. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say, the idea of leadership trying, you know, making public perception believe that, you know, we as workers, if we don't go, I mean, like, it's a gift given to us. It's
Right.
nonsense, because the whole CARES Act, about what 75% went to big businesses. They
Yes, it
gave
did.
like 500 billion to the airlines,
It did.
you know, without any question.
Well, I'll admit they had large overhead, and they probably needed it. You know.
See how the mentality is, like, you know, there's a reason for them, but not a reason for everyday
But
people.
Because yeah,
Did Amazon
American.
need it? No, Amazon didn't need it.
No,
No.
They took a hit, but come on now.
But what about the person that's going to be homeless if they don't have it?
Exactly.
I mean, so their amount of need,
Right.
it
pales
still
in
hurts.
comparison.
Yeah, it depends. It's relative.
Well, in the Hills Act, I mean, it's got so much pork in it.
Yeah.
You know,
I ain't heard that in a while, man.
yes,
the pork.
Yeah, the pork.
yeah.
Yeah.
They,
I mean-
they were for building an FBI building next to the Trump. They wanted.
Right.
What is that? You know, how's that?
Have you guys seen the FBI building?
No.
Yes.
It's a beautiful building.
Yes,
I mean, it's been there for a while.
it
you
is,
know.
but it's
I
still
heard-
structurally just very appealing.
It is.
Mhm.
So why would someone like Trump feel that it's directly across the street from his hotel?
Right.
I mean, it's at an angle, but that old building used to be the old post office. I used to go there and we used to have lunch in there and stuff like that.
Right.
But I don't understand why this stuff even coming up.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe because he thinks he'll be around in the White House to look at it for a long time.
He's only, according to Carter, he's only entitled to 8 years.
Well,
That's
they want to
it. We know
remodel
that.
the West Wing, that's in there too, in the bill.
Oh, yeah.
There's money for remodeling the West Wing, and there's money also for additional aircraft for the military.
Yeah.
So why do we need additional aircraft?
I'm surprised he
for the
tried to
military?
change
Yeah.
Air Force One.
Now,
Well, he said he wanted to repaint it. Did you?
No, I
hear
didn't hear that one, no.
Yeah, he wants to repaint it.
And his wife wants to set up a garden at the White House?
Yes.
That she
Yeah.
just decided
Another
a
one?
couple weeks ago?
Yes.
Right.
Well, she wants to redo.
Oh, she wants to redo the
She wants-
garden.
Yes, she believes it's time.
Oh, so she probably doesn't want any more vegetables. She probably just wants flowers.
Right. Correct.
Wow. And so she waited
Until
3.5
go.
years to
To decide.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's,
so wait a minute.
yes, go ahead.
So I haven't checked on it, but was there any pork in the Heroes Act?
No,
Not at all.
none. It's a clean bill. How about that?
Yeah. Wow.
They
It's a
covered a
clean
lot.
bill.
They covered a lot, you know.
Yeah.
But I know that the reason, and see, that's another thing, the reason that McConnell didn't want to push it through, because his thing was that it's Nancy again giving stuff away.
Yeah. Okay. Wait a minute. Okay. We talking about pork. We all know about pork.
Right.
But our viewers may not know what pork means.
Okay, yeah, explain what pork is.
So pork is basically private projects, either or politicians
Unrelated
have,
stuff.
yeah, for special interest groups,
Right.
and they just it's not necessary for the bill, but they want to add it in
Right.
to move things along.
Well, and a lot of times it's things that didn't make it out of committee
Right.
in other bills and, was turned down. And then they, give it a second life by then embedding it, underneath the pages of another bill.
And it's the way to get the support that they
That's
need to get it through.
absolutely right.
Isn't that what happened with the 13th Amendment?
It is.
Yes.
That's exactly what
Sure
happened.
was. They had to add that one piece of compromise.
Right.
Except if a person has committed a
Committed
crime.
crime.
Commit a crime.
Yep.
Exactly.
I mean, well, is that considered pork or just the compromise?
That's
Because
compromise.
it's a compromise, so that's not
Yeah.
pork.
Okay.
Okay.
Pork is like I need a bridge over
Right.
it. And,
Right.
Mhm.
You know.
I need to get some money for defense.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay. So let me ask you guys a question. This whole talk about defunding the police, don't you think they should change the name? You shouldn't call it that, because when you say defunding the police, the average person is thinking we're going to take money from the cops.
Mhm.
And we do want to take money from the cops, but some people talk about just shutting it all down.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't think it was presented. I think it was to rile emotions.
Right.
Yeah.
By saying we're going to cut out the police, we're going to, that's because that's what it sounds like. Gets people excited. Wow.
Yeah.
But then every time I look at a Senate or a hearing, on C-SPAN, because I'm a little nerdy,
Yeah.
I see these hearings and stuff, and I'm seeing them. Republican side is always saying, well, Biden wanted to do this and Biden wanted to do that, and now they're talking and just trying to, deflate him.
Mhm.
But I think that it was promoted and pushed out and marketed wrong by saying they wanted to defund the police. And it started with the, up in Minnesota with the Ray Floyd's killing.
Yeah.
I think they should change that.
Like first responder fund allocation or something.
It needs to be reallocated.
It needs
Yeah.
to.
It's a reallocation.
Because when I started hearing what it really meant, I'm like, why do they want to defund the police? We need all this.
Right.
Then it started making sense that, okay, this is what they want to do. They want to add up a different type of police officer. That will
Correct.
come out, community police,
Correct.
that will come out and deal with those non-violent situations, another type of first responder.
Well, this is what our legislators need to do when they enact a bill. They need to rename it. So when it gets submitted, it won't look like defunded police
Right,
until it's passed. Then they say, yeah, this is our defunded police fund.
right, right,
So yeah, the marketing, there was none.
right.
It just, I don't even know who
I mean,
came up
it
with the
definitely
name.
was marketing because everybody was watching and everybody heard it. So it was a marketing, probably wasn't meant as a marketing thing, but hey,
Yeah.
we're trying to get this out. We wanted to fund the police.
Mhm.
So it was activists.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
You
And that's who it was meant to appeal to, maybe.
Right. Right.
Yeah, with no sense of politics,
Right.
Right.
because that's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
But so you are for defunding the police?
I'm for reallocating, yes.
Yeah.
I think there should be community, because like I told you, I grew up in DC, they
Uh-huh.
had community police, but they wore the same uniforms as everybody else.
Mhm.
And they came and participated in school activities, they told us what it's like to be a police.
Yeah.
Because it inspired young people.
Yeah.
And they had firefighters come in too. But they came in, they played basketball games, and they had bands.
Mhm.
They would come in and they would do bands and stuff, and do concerts,
Yeah.
actual
Mhm.
concerts in DC.
Right.
So it was all these things that were in place But I think that if this is going to take on a whole, I mean, I heard they have billions of dollars poured into these larger police departments, you know,
Right.
for things like military and, you know, and just everything for the purpose of trying to prosecute.
Yeah.
Right.
But
And
nothing to actually help the community. And of course, but look, we know that if you're a property owner, you know, one of the things you look out for is one, how's the crime rate?
Mhm.
Because that's going to determine, has some impact on the value of your home,
Mhm.
and how are the schools,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that money should be shifted from the police departments to the schools.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Patricia can attest to some of that. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what do you guys think?
Well, just came out this week in the city of Dallas.
Okay.
They were trying to get the police chief to lower murders. It was over 200 murders the previous year,
Right.
and they came out with the updated numbers. Even within the lockdown, the numbers were the same.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, violent
The crime rate
crime
hasn't
did not
changed.
change, even though we were all locked in for 2 months.
Mm.
Right.
So, yeah, so
Were these murders taking place in the house? Were they domestic murders or what? I mean,
they were all across the board. It didn't
Wow.
change. It didn't even change. Like even, I didn't see the time during the lockdown, but when it comes to the beginning of the year up to this point, it's the same number.
I heard murders. I heard rapes.
Yeah,
Rape, of course, domestic violence. We
Mhm.
know about that one, but
Child
definitely heard
abuse.
rapes, child abuse.
yeah. So when you look at that, you know, we haven't even allocated anything,
No.
and yet crime is the same. You know, why not change things? You have, you know, police chiefs in Seattle, all this stuff. They're like looking at their budget and saying, "Well, we still need this and we still need that." No.
Right.
What do you really? The police chiefs need to come out and say, "What do you want your people? What do you want them to do? What as far
Well,
as their
And
job?"
how would they know if they didn't go out to the community? So that's what the community policing thing is.
Yeah.
You need advocates
Yeah.
from the police department that's out there on the street,
Mhm.
talking to people, show up at those town hall meetings. You know,
Yeah.
even though you have your city council, there need to be some police officers
Yeah.
there too. You need to have people of certain ethnicities working in those communities because they understand what's going on better.
But the other thing is, when you look at communities that have, you know, lower crime rates,
Yeah.
those communities have allocated their resources
Yeah.
into areas where they are needed.
Right.
For example, in terms of mental health,
Mhm.
you know, there is money that's allocated for mental health support. So that if someone is, you know, on the street who is having an episode,
Mhm.
the police, they're not called.
Right.
Those professionals who are trained to, you know,
To
deal
handle
with that
such
type
situation,
of,
yeah.
right, with
Yeah.
those situations, you know, that's who goes and takes care of that. You know, those communities where they have after-school activities for the youth, you know, and the, what is it, the gyms and
Mhm.
Yeah.
those,
I mean, shit, boys
Community-
club.
right,
Yeah.
those clubs, you know,
Programs.
Community
those
centers.
communities are the ones that do not have those issues. So when we're talking about reallocating funding, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about taking the money and putting it in the places where it will do the most good, for the greater good.
But you know what the new excuse would be coming in next year?
What's that?
We don't have the money.
They can never say that again.
No, but no.
That's not what happened
But,
this
but
year.
get this, no, but
Right.
get this. There's no sales tax because people are not going to buy things,
Right.
and property tax. You know, people are getting evicted. So they're going to say.
They were saying
I'm not saying it's right. I'm just telling you that they're going to look at it saying we did not bring in this much revenue. And
But if
so
it's
far-
federal money, then it's passed down to the states and then to the local jurisdictions.
So-
How is there not enough money?
So is it? Well, there's always enough money,
Right, that's what I'm saying.
but I'm
Or
just
as your
saying-
president said, just print some more.
Yeah. So do you think? So do you think the rules?
He did.
Do you think the rules should come from the feds, or do you think the state legislatures and the government should set the rules for their states?
I think honestly at this point now, like when it comes to education and certain things, I think that should be run by the state. But I think that the federal government needs to set a precedent.
Mhm.
They need to say, okay, within the federal government, we're saying that these are things that you should do within these parameters, like with any other law.
Yeah.
You know, it's passed down. The states have to fall within that constitution. They have each state has their own constitution. You know, and I think the states should come up with those, but it has to be within the parameters. I think that like with marijuana, I think marijuana should be legal, but it has to be started at the federal level first.
Yeah.
And then each state can decide how they're going to make it legal in their states, or how they want to monitor it, you know what I mean? Because it's legal.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's saying you can only buy it from certain places, then you can only buy it, you know? And that's it. And then that's how you regulate, like with alcohol. You know,
Right.
you can't
Yeah.
just be on the
Right.
corner selling alcohol.
Right.
It's regulated.
Right.
So I think that it can be done. I guess my question is, why is it so complicated? It seemed like an easy thing to do because it makes sense. And this is something that helps the masses. I mean, think about the these community policing organizations that are out there.
Right.
I mean, it's going to help. It could help your property value over time
Yeah.
because the streets are safer. You know, the police departments in that strain, I know that being a police officer is a lot of work on them.
Mm-hmm.
They have a high like with teachers too.
Yeah.
There's a huge expectation for them to be, you know, social workers. You know, they show up
Right.
on these
Right.
scenes where there are things that they shouldn't be dealing with. They're not trained to deal with that.
Right.
And I think they're frustrated.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They're frustrated. I'm speaking on the good side of the cops. You know what I'm saying? They're frustrated. They're angry. They're tired. They're worn out, and so they're angry. And then they have a gun.
Yeah.
So that's a bad combination.
You know, and their suicide rates are going up anyway.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
are.
You know, there was a story in Chicago that a police chief, 2 weeks, not a police chief, a high-ranking police officer in Chicago, he got promoted, and then 2 weeks later, there was a suicide.
I read that.
Mm.
Yeah. So, I think the problem is because on the Democrat, the bill they passed,
Right.
it put in a lot of things to the table.
Right.
And Republicans want to do a little small fix. Now, and then move it along.
Mm.
So here's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
You want everything, I want everything on the table and been passed through,
Right.
and not just a small Band-Aid. But that's what's causing the issue.
Right.
Well, also your police unions.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I forgot about them.
Yeah, your
Yeah.
police unions, and they have a lot of funding.
Yeah.
They do a lot of lobbying, and because of that, I mean, that's you follow the money,
Yeah.
and then you can figure out the source of the problem.
And they're tiptoeing on racketeering.
Absolutely.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So we're going to move into our final segment, which is something we say we're going to talk about. I said at the beginning of the show that voting. Okay. We have a major election coming up, and of course, every candidate has ever run for president. This is the most important election in history. I think that stands true now. This is definitely more important than the one in 2016. 2016 was pretty important. This one's even more. Hold on, you know something before I get into that. I want to talk about something that's happened this year, right? And I think I mentioned this. I might have mentioned this on a show. I might have mentioned some people just in the studio. I remember doing a lot of research on the decade of the 60s, the 1960s, right? There were a lot of things that happened in the 1960s. So there was this book that was called, I think Patricia told you about this book. There was a book called The Decade of Awakening.
Right.
So many things that happened. You know, we know that there were threats with the USSR, you know, in 1960 during the election, right? And then we know in 63 there was an assassination.
Mm-hmm.
We know in 64 there was there was the bill by Johnson, right? 68, 65 there was the voting rights bill, civil rights bill, voting rights bill in 65. 68 of course there's the march on Washington, plus also 68 there was the assassination of both Martin Luther King and of RFK. 69 there was the launch. You know, so I'm just paraphrasing. These are some little things that happened. There's a lot of things in between those events that took place, but a lot took place in a matter of 10 years.
Right.
This year is starting out. This is the first of a decade. This year is starting out with a lot of stuff. A whole generation of people are not even aware of the stuff that happened back then.
Right.
But if you go back, if we were to sit back and just look at, because we all at least 4 decades here, right? So we look back, we go back 4 decades, even the decade we were born, we know that there were things happening, but they were kind of sporadic.
Yeah.
But this one is starting to mirror what happened in the 60s. We don't have an assassination, we don't have nothing like that, but this is a different type of event.
Let's
We have
hope
a
not.
pandemic.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, we don't want any assassination, but I won't say on the air.
Well,
But you know what I'm saying? So is this the beginning of something, or is this just 2020? Because we do things by years, you know what I'm saying? We
Mhm.
measure things. What happened this year, boom, boom, might not happen another 4 or 5 years.
I think it's the beginning of something.
I think so too.
I do too.
I think that the protests, just because they have not stopped,
Yep.
and I was worried a little bit that, they might stop, people might retreat back into their homes,
They didn't.
but look at what's going on in Seattle
Matter of fact,
and
it's even
Portland.
changed.
Yeah,
Yes.
and now, now that the federal government has gotten involved in those protests, that's inciting people even more.
Yep.
So I just think that, we're ripe for change. And we have been for a while. It's not going to be pretty, but
Because I look
we're
at the
ripe for
20s,
change.
2000s, where we know there was 9/11, of course, but there was also come into this election, there was the election
Right.
between Gore and Bush.
Yeah.
And that was a wake up, like, oh my God, what's going on,
Right.
And then right after that, 9/11. But also then there was Enron and a whole lot of things were happening. But and then of course there was the two wars, But those things pale in comparison to what's happening in the first 8 months of this year.
Right.
You know what I mean? Don't get me war is bad,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it didn't impact people globally.
Globally, no. Yeah. I was going to say the thing America-wise, the only thing that occurred in the last 10 years that equal to what this 6 months has been, has been the number of mass shootings.
Right.
Right. And that didn't change the needle, but this is changing the needle.
This is definitely changing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to bring that up, but in our final segment, I want to talk about how important it is to get out and vote, how important it is to get out and register to vote. So let me ask you this: for the common people, because I'm a common person, I'm the 3-year-old now. What happens if I register and I don't vote? Somebody just want to respond. No, sorry, go ahead.
I feel that you wasted a perfect opportunity to put your mark on the future.
When I was younger, somebody said that if you don't vote, it goes to the other person. I know that now is not to be true.
Yeah.
But if you register as a Democrat, if you don't vote behind that registration, it goes to the other side. If you guys tell
It
me
also
it's true.
throws off projections too.
Yes.
And it sets
For future
expectations.
elections.
Yeah, that aren't going to be met. I mean, how many people didn't vote for Hillary Clinton?
Right. And there was
They
a lot
were-
of people that registered.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why they expected her to win. We
Yeah.
all expected it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it really throws things off.
Yeah, because there was almost 200 million people registered,
Yeah.
and yet only 26 voted.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a large representation of people sitting out.
And she won way more than 50% of the popular vote, but she still lost.
Going back
The,
to that
the
electoral
popular
college.
people, the popular people who actually showed up to vote.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Cause
Gotcha.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I always tell people that only 26% of the population put in our current president.
Right.
So 26% of the people are getting their way.
Interesting.
And so you put it like in that perspective, do you really think that represents the country? No, it doesn't.
No.
So I feel that this year with record turnout, the important after you register to follow through,
Right.
because now we're all in this together, and now we've seen the last 3.5 years of the effects of not participating.
Right.
Right.
So now we had just a statement this past week from our wonderful friend in the White House. It said that he wants to delay the vote.
Yeah.
We know Constitution is not possible,
Mhm.
Correct.
but it's building up a lot of momentum because everybody's talking about it now,
Yeah.
Right.
and I don't understand. So why please explain? It's news. Everything Trump says is news.
This morning though, weren't they kind of trying to push it off to the Democratic governors, saying that, well, Trump only said that because the Democratic voters or the Democratic governors were wanting to expand early voting, and so it wasn't that he really wanted to move the election date. He just didn't want to
Now
have
the
to.
Democrat that said that?
No, it wasn't a Democrat that said it, but
Oh,
they were.
that's what
But
they're
on what they're saying now
That's
is
the
they're,
dog whistle.
they're blaming it on the Democratic governors who are
Wanted
wanting
to
to.
extend mail-in ballots for the whole state,
Right.
regardless of reason, because of there's a pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, the only one to extend the early voting so far
It's
is
Abbott.
a Republican
It's a
governor.
Republican in
Yeah.
Texas. That is
So,
correct.
so he knows the game that even though traditionally Democratic Democrats come in for early voting,
Right.
he knows that there's going to be a record turnout
Correct.
And this is a deadly virus still going on.
Correct.
Right.
So,
People want to show up.
yeah, people.
I really believe people want to show up. They would have their mask on. Look, I'm on roller skating. I'm inside. People got their masks on. I was really impressed. Like when I went last night, that was probably 85-90% of people had a mask on the whole time. Sweat coming
Okay.
down.
Yeah.
You know. I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay. So throw out a number. How many people do you think are going to show up?
Percentage wise
Yeah.
of the
Electric.
Oh,
I say 70.
I was gonna say 70, 75.
Yeah.
You think that high?
I think
Oh,
that high.
I think.
Oh,
it's-
yeah.
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 Too much
Okay.
going on.
Oh, it is.
Everybody, no matter what party you are,
Yeah.
you're impacted by corona
Yeah.
in some
Absolutely.
type of way.
Yeah.
My one concern is I don't know how impacted we will be by corona by the time early voting starts.
Yeah. Now, early voting for
Fall
us
is
is
coming.
October 13th. For most people, October 20th. I wouldn't even waste my time. I was talking to Michelle. I wouldn't waste my time doing the mail-in ballots. I would
Yeah.
show up the first day I made up my mind.
Because early voting, at least in Texas, can't you go to any polling place for early vote?
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah, so you don't have to be constrained to the polling place for
Right.
your area.
Right.
So
I
you
would-
can do it on your way to work, you can
Right.
do it on your way to the gym, if you
Yeah.
want, if your gym is open.
I'm gonna go to a rich neighborhood and vote, just because.
Because you know it's gonna be safe,
Right.
you know it's gonna be fast.
Yes.
True.
They're gonna know what they're doing.
That's
Yep.
true.
Right.
If
Yep.
you're walking in as a Democrat, you know the line is going to be short.
Exactly.
Well, unfortunately. But you know something that's funny because there's a lot of very wealthy Democrats
They are.
that you know I've talked to just here in Texas. I mean, I ain't saying they're wealthy, I'm not rubbing elbows with people like that. But people that I know that are doing okay financially, they're
Mhm.
Democrats.
Yeah.
You would think that they would be here in Texas.
Yeah.
You would think that they would be Republicans.
Right.
But you know, so I think the tides have really changed.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a record turnout at the polls this year
Mhm.
because of everything that's going on. And you mentioned that how it's going to be or how things are going to change by the time the election comes. I think we'll be going into a new phase because we'll be dealing with what's going on with the schools.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think majority of people who are voting that have children are going to be impacted by what's going on with the school by then.
And if they get sick,
Right.
they're
Oh.
definitely gonna be angry.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This guy got to go.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay,
it's
but
done.
my question about that is, we didn't get angry about Sandy Hook.
Right.
Amen.
Well,
It didn't impact us nationally though. We felt it. It's like every nation wasn't impacted by 9/11, but everybody was indirectly, you know, what is it? Post-traumatic stress. It wasn't direct impact.
yeah, it wasn't in your
Yeah.
backyard.
Right.
So
But this and everybody.
yeah, everybody has
This
been
could be
affected.
your child.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right.
Everybody has been affected.
And I don't even have kids,
Mhm.
but you know, I've been impacted by it because we had slower turnout here in the
Mhm.
studio. So it's been an impact. So we're gonna close the show out, and I know we have a special topic next week as well, right?
Yeah, small business.
Small business, my favorite subject. Okay, so I want to thank Sonia. I really want to thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
You know,
This was fun.
Yeah, I would love to have you back. I mean, you seem like a pro. Love to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm sure the team would like to have you back too.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Aya, you know, this felt good, man.
It did. It
This show
did.
felt good.
Yeah.
You know, I think we found our niche now. So,
Let's keep this train running.
right. Michelle, I want to thank you also
Thank
for
you.
being a part of us. You know, I think people are starting to really recognize you and like, oh, she ain't that on the show. What do you want to do? We got to get Patricia coming. We got to find another engineer. But she do okay because we talk politics all the time. So, you know. But, so with that being said, we'll see you guys on our new time from 7:30 to 8:30 every Sunday, Central Time. So we look forward to seeing you guys next week when we talk about small business, my favorite subject. And I will see you guys then. Farewell. Clear? There it is. Sound clear to me. Sound clear to me.